Hey folks, welcome back. Today we're looking at Arianna Grande. I'm going to kick off with her astrological natal chart right here on my iPad, and then we'll get into some more specific readings after I'm done with this. Right away, first of all, I should say that I'm pulling her birth chart from astro.com, and I can already see with this particular birth chart that she's a pretty intense person. By the way, anyone born within the really, really close same time frame as she and in the same area as she are all going to have the same birth chart. But what's different is that people will have different backgrounds, they'll have different behaviors, they'll have different personality types, their families will all be different, their socioeconomic backgrounds will all be different. That's what makes the individual unique. The astrological birth chart is just one part of the equation. So, her sun sign is in Cancer, and that has some unique interactions with the other planets and zodiac signs in this particular chart. With Cancer, you kind of associate that with home, the home environment. Those are people who can be good parents. Not always, okay? Especially if it has strained relationships with the other planets in the chart. She could be a good mom one day, or she might not be, okay? It all depends on who she is as a person. Once again, birth charts just tell one part of a story, but they do reveal some interesting stuff at the same time. So, sun sign is in Cancer. Her ascendant is in Capricorn. And conversely, her descendant is in Cancer. So her ascendant is what she shows to the public. And this is interesting. In Capricorn, she has the planet, it's also in the 12th house. So her ascendant, her Neptune and Uranus appear in her 12th house in Capricorn. That's going to be about being a very hardworking individual, stereotypically being very consistent, but potentially also being stubborn, even like way harsh. Past the point that anybody else would say, okay, it's time to back off. She's that kind of person who continues to drive even when other people are saying maybe it's a good time to slow down and take time out for yourself. What's interesting with Neptune and Uranus in her 12th house is that she might start to feel that she wants to do something suddenly. She might want to feel like she wants to suddenly disrupt everything in her world, but not talk to people about it until it just erupts and bursts and people can't ignore it anymore. The thing is, what other people won't have, they may have similar charts as she does, but what other people won't have is that they won't have like a whole team to smooth things over for her. With Neptune and Uranus conjunct, in Capricorn, in her 12th house, she can do something suddenly, erupt suddenly. She can be thinking about it for a while and actually do it. And any kind of smoothing over that needs to be done won't be done by her. Normally, a person with this kind of birth chart would have to do their own smoothing over of the situation, diffusing of the situation. So that particular interaction, Uranus and Neptune in her 12th house in Capricorn, has a direct opposition to her Mercury in Cancer. So she has her Sun and her Mercury in Cancer. Now her Mercury in Cancer appears in the 7th house, which is about romantic partnerships, as well as any relationships that she may have with enemies, business partners, those kinds of people. These are people that are very, very close to Arianna. So, with the opposing energies of Neptune and Uranus in Capricorn in her 12th house, suddenly deciding to do things and not really caring about what gets left behind, driving things forward, this is how she interacts and rejects and destroys romantic relationships. Romantic relationships that would normally be pretty stable-ish with Cancer. This is someone who might be quite explosive with her emotions, might suddenly be the kind of person to say, it's fine, and then suddenly blow up in her romantic partner's face and just end things. Capricorn is definitely an entity to put an end to things if they absolutely have to. With that opposition, the word violent might come to mind. There might be some really powerful verbal fights. She might not throw fists. Nobody that she dates or is enemies with might throw fists, but verbally, that's a different matter altogether. This opposition is something that will come up repeatedly throughout her romantic relationships unless she chooses to slow things down. With that Mercury in Cancer, she's pretty good at talking as if she's a stable a stable place to come home to, if you will. But then that Capricorn energy in that 12th house, that Neptune, that Uranus, it's often too strong of a temptation for her to suddenly not be there anymore. Throw things to the side. Uranus is a really, really powerful entity, especially now that we're in Pluto in Aquarius. I wonder if you're not going to see more disruptions over the next 20 years when it comes to her romantic relationships. She's, from what I understand, built up quite a reputation around romantic relationships as someone who is willing to cheat to signal that it's time for her to let the other partner know, hey, it's time for me to move on, but not constructively move on. Okay? That Mercury in Cancer may kind of give that smooth talker kind of feel, and then she suddenly throws everything out of whack for the other people. Okay? Complicating everything here is I've got a bunch of oppositions here for Arianna. I just talked about one opposition. She has 4, if I'm counting correctly, okay? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, there's 3. Nope, no. 1, 2, 3. Sorry, I can count. That's a lot of opposing energy, okay? Another opposition that she has is between her Pluto in Scorpio and her Venus in Taurus. Her Pluto in Scorpio appears in her 10th house. This is someone who can reinvent herself pretty frequently, can be flexible when reinventing herself, and she's also a hard worker. Her Pluto in Capricorn has a sextiling relationship with her I said Pluto and Scorpio, excuse me. It has a good sextiling relationship with her Capricorn in Neptune and Uranus. She's able to pivot really easily when it comes to the work that she needs to do, and she can also keep it on the down low if the people that she's working with ask her to do so. She's not above keeping a project hidden until it's time to reveal it to the world, right? That's a good thing that she's got going on right there. But Pluto and Scorpio can also be a really, really rough sign. This is a vengeful sign, potentially, okay? If she doesn't make steps to improve herself, this is someone who doesn't have a problem biting other people when they least expect it. Potentially, it allows her to flow freely with the other person, to be loyal when it comes to romantic partnerships. It has a trining relationship with Pluto. Let's say Pluto and Scorpio has a trining relationship with her Mercury in Cancer in the 7th house. So once again, we come back to this smooth talker. She's able to kind of lure people in, if we're going with the god of the underworld, Pluto, Hades, if you will. She's able to lure people in and be a smooth talker, but then she's got that ability to just suddenly end things, throw everything away, and move on to the next person. Vengeful can sting. That scorpion image, it's easy for her to sting and not think of it. The problem with this is that this theme is going to come up over and over again throughout her life, and her sun sign in Cancer might wonder sometimes, why can't I have the stable environment that I want? And if she thinks deeply enough, and with that Pluto and Scorpio, she absolutely has the potential to do so. She has to choose that. And I don't know that she's the kind of person who's going to be accustomed to doing the hard emotional, mental, spiritual labor that it would take for her to grow into the kind of person who is an evolved Pluto in Scorpio, who can enjoy the spiritual aspects of life. She's been put on this earth partly to encourage other people to pay attention to the spiritual side, that what we see here on earth, what we experience here on earth is just part of the equation. It's not the whole thing. She's in a unique place with that Pluto and Scorpio in her 10th house. She's in a unique place to show that to the world, to talk about how it's influenced her, but she has to choose that. So her Pluto and Scorpio has, in the 10th house, has an opposition to her Venus in Taurus in the 4th house. Now, normally, this would be a pretty good placement, or I should say Venus in Taurus would be a pretty solid, cool placement to have, but it's opposing here. This is quite possibly someone who has dealt with sexual abuse, possibly in the home, and I should also say possibly sexual abuse after she became famous, right? That's something that I kind of picked up on with this birth chart, and when I've listened to other tarot readers, such as Aphrodite, speak about her, I just kind of got that messaging. I could be completely wrong there, okay? In any case, that Pluto and Scorpio, when it has an opposition to Venus and Taurus, sometimes her living situation, things that make her comfortable, might suddenly end. And she might be left floundering if she doesn't know how to move forward, if she doesn't know how to smooth things over, diffuse the situation by herself without a team around her. Venus and Taurus in the 4th house indicates that she grew up in a very comfortable, even loving environment, possibly a great deal of money, just a generally comfortable environment altogether. So that's 2 oppositions that I've covered. The next opposition is with her Saturn in Pisces in her 2nd house. This is teaching her about the things that she values the most. Money, fame is part of that as well, because that's what gets her her money. That's what gets her the things that are comfortable for her. Right now, she's having some issues. Well, right now, what I should say is she's currently going through her Saturn return until March 2025. That's all about boundaries between self and other people. Normally, I would say for Pisces, Saturn and Pisces kinds of people, is that they need to figure out how to prevent people from pushing into their lives, pushing their opinions, their thoughts, their beliefs into those people's lives. Eugenia Cooney is also currently going through her Saturn return in Pisces. I've already done a video on that. But with Arianna, this particular transit is teaching her, this Saturn in Pisces transit is teaching her should be teaching her not to overflow into other people's boundaries. She may not talk about this because, again, she's got that really powerful 12th house placement. This is not something that she's going to be terribly willing to talk about. And honestly, it might be a bit embarrassing for someone who might struggle with pride with that Pluto and Scorpio in her 10th house. This is going to be someone who gets embarrassed pretty easily. And she has that opposition, Saturn and Pisces in her 2nd house. She has that opposition with Mars in Virgo in her 8th house. The 8th house is all about death, rebirth, transformations, being the phoenix rising from the ashes. With Mars in Virgo, she is very dogged when it comes to ending things. Virgo is the sign of the first harvest in the agricultural season. That's about cutting, harvesting stuff, taking the scythe and cutting stuff off. Virgos are very detail-oriented, very hard workers. And so with that Saturn in Pisces in the 2nd house, she's going to be the kind of thing to end one contract and move on to the next. Be very, very decisive about pushing things forward at the cost of other people's boundaries. This isn't always a good thing, and if she doesn't learn to deal with it, she doesn't learn to deal with not overflowing into other people's territories, this issue, this tension, is going to consistently come up over and over, and she's not going to understand why there are people pushing back constantly. She may have dreams with that Pisces, but with Saturn, there's going to need to be some concreteness behind it. With that Mars in Virgo, that should be a placement that says, I know what to do to bring about the things that I want to see. That should be cool, but it's going to come up against what I want. Pisces, my dreams, my hopes, my aspirations, come up against this earth energy, okay? That's a lot of earth energy with that particular opposition. She's not going to know why things don't move forward when she wants them to. And the universe is trying to tell her to slow down. Think of the people around her. Think about other people's agendas. She's not the only one with agendas who has something to accomplish in her lifetime. This Saturn and Pisces transit is about teaching her to work with others, and that's what's going to cause the money to flow. If she wants to make the most of her Saturn return, then she's going to need to learn to work constructively with others and not push other people to the side to make herself the star. And if I'm not mistaken, she's had issues with that on other sets, and that's been from like an earlier age, before she really started to hit the music scene. From what I understand, she's been the kind of person to push other people's star power to the side in order to favor her own. And once again, she might be shielded quite a bit from the consequences of her behavior because she is who she is. And also when she was breaking into the entertainment scene, there might have been people who smoothed the way for her and taught her that it was okay for her to behave the way that she behaves. I'm getting the phrase, she is not the girl's girl. That's part of it. Virgo, associated with the Virgin, right? With women, specifically. That's just a little bit, okay? She's got quite a bit of opposing and squaring energy in this particular birth chart. Because she's got so many people to take care of her, to make things go away, she's not going to feel this as acutely unless things end. With that Pluto and Scorpio in the 10th house, with that Venus and that it's opposing that Venus and Taurus in her 4th house, she might have become accustomed to a certain level of comfort that in the future might suddenly end. All the people who smoothed things over for her, her PR team, the people who said, you're doing great, keep trampling on others to get to where you need to go, might disappear because her star power isn't there anymore for whatever reason, okay? And we can look at that in just a bit. So let's talk about a dominant triangle aspect pattern between her Pluto and Scorpio and between her Saturn in Pisces. This is going to make it to where she doesn't know why things are ending. She doesn't know why things are changing. And especially with from what I got from Aphrodite's reading on her, she doesn't know why her efforts are being blocked. She's trying to make the absolute most. She's throwing herself into this particular project, and I can understand why anyone would do that for something like Wicked, okay? That's understandable, but she doesn't know why the blockages are what they are. I kind of got from Aphrodite's reading that she feels like Cynthia's star power is overflowing into her court, so to speak. And right now in interviews, she isn't giving that as much. She's really giving that we're a team, we're the very closest, bestest friends in the world possible. But that's her hiding in that 12th house, that Uranus, that Neptune and Capricorn in her 12th house. She's hiding a lot of stuff right there. She's keeping things to herself, and that's partly why things work so well, right? It's not just her team. To a certain degree, she can keep her mouth shut if she needs to. But right now, it's really making things difficult for her. Seeing other people get to take the stage is going to be difficult for her. What she can do to build wisdom when it comes to other people's stars rising sometimes above her own is that she can say, I have a home within myself. We're talking about this. It has a wisdom line, if you will. Saturn in Pisces has a wisdom line, that green line between it and Mercury in Cancer. Okay? She can speak to herself in such a way that says, no matter what happens, I am my own home. I trust myself. I provide stability for myself no matter what happens. And this might be a real challenge for her, growing into that wisdom, consistently being confronted with other people's successes might draw out the very worst in her with that Pluto and Scorpio. And by the way, there's quite a bit of interaction with Pluto and Scorpio in her birth chart. If she chooses to grow, she's going to become, and she could become, an incredibly powerfully comforting person. When other people are going through hard times in the entertainment industry, she might become comfortable, try to at least, become comfortable sitting in the back seat and becoming a kind of den mother, if you will, for other up-and-coming rising stars. Right now, she cannot, it's a struggle for her to tolerate other people being center stage because she's been accustomed to that. That's where the wisdom could come in if she chooses to welcome it in. And once again, she can talk her way out of a lot of this too. She can talk herself down from this if she chooses to. She can encourage herself. She can choose to speak about it in a new way. When we have that a trining interaction between Mercury in Cancer and Pluto in Scorpio, she can choose to say, I used to be a really prideful person. And that's where that wisdom comes in. After she's gained the experience of other people's stars rising above hers, possibly in the future, then she can come out later and say, I fucked up. I wasn't the best person to my co-stars, to the people that I dated, to anyone else who I may have trampled to get to where I am. She can come out and apologize for those roles and teach people how to not behave as she behaved. But first, she needs to choose to rise towards her best or highest good, and only she can do that. She can get all kinds of encouragement from the universe, from people who might mean really well when they try to give her advice, but if she doesn't want to listen, it's not going to happen, okay? Let's talk some more about her Sun in Cancer. So Sun in Cancer appears in her 6th house. This is someone who would be a domestic goddess if she were the kind to stay at home, right? This is someone who would feel very comfortable in the home environment with kids, quite possibly raising kids. And she might not be the person to enjoy kids. Let me just say that. She does not have any planets in her 5th house associated with Gemini in this particular case. I don't know that she's going to have any children in this lifetime, okay? And I could be completely wrong about that. But in any case, she's definitely the kind of person to make a really cool home with that Venus and Taurus energy. She's going to be throwing incredible parties. She might be a great fur parent, for instance, if she enjoys pets. This is someone who who on one hand enjoys a stable home environment, but with that, she's got squaring energy with her moon and her Jupiter in Libra. So this is wanting to expand romantic connections, wanting to expand her diplomacy, if that makes any sense for entertainer. This is someone who wants to invite people to view her in a favorable way. With Jupiter, she wants to constantly be expanding that. With that moon, it's a very emotional need for her, and that's in her 9th house, by the way. That's of getting a higher education, taking a spiritual path. She's being encouraged in this particular department to think more spiritually, not just about her fame, what makes her materially comfortable. It's about who are you going to be at the end of the day when your life is winding down, when people don't see you as, oh my God, Arianna Grande anymore, whatever her last name may be whenever that time rolls around, right? This is going to invite her to think more expansively when it comes to that kind of stuff. And this is someone who might experience quite a bit of emotionality when it comes to her spirituality. Ideally, it would be great to see her expand her spiritual aspect with that 9th house, her moon placement. The moon is associated with Cancer, so that should be a good interaction with her sun in Cancer, but it isn't. It's a squaring energy. So right away when I looked at this interaction, I saw someone who wanted to quickly expand a romantic relationship, and then it goes bust because, again, she's got that really divisive, disruptive energy with that Capricorn, Uranus, and Neptune. I've got a new dream. I'm done with this suddenly out of the blue. I know I didn't talk to you about this, but I'm done with it now. And it lands her into trouble. It makes it so that she doesn't understand why home doesn't feel like home to her. She always wants more. She can't be satisfied from people because at the end of the day, she's looking to external factors. This tells me that she tends to look towards external factors towards making her happy. And as long as she does that, as long as anybody does that, by the way, not just her, then happiness is always going to run away. She needs to realize that. She needs to understand that in order to come into her own happiness. I noticed that her true node is in Sagittarius in her 11th house. So that's about her true purpose. She's meant to expand her genuine connections with others, with friends, with fans as well. She's meant to have genuine spiritual connections with people, with that Pluto and Scorpio being close by. She can do this. You know, part of me wonders if she wouldn't be more successful as a spiritual leader over, being just not just an entertainer. She can both entertain and show people, this is why I exist. This is how I'm here to help you on your own spiritual journey. She can choose to do this. And in fact, the universe is asking her if she's willing to do this. She doesn't have to, but I wonder if her true purpose, as long as she's avoiding that or just not paying attention to it, right? You don't know what you don't know. As long as no one is saying, hey, have you considered a spiritual path that vibes most with you? She's not going to be able to tap into that true node potential. However, I did notice that she has, at least on the surface, a very, very, very even enmeshed, is that the word? An enmeshed relationship with Cynthia right now, her co-star. She might be feeling like this is it on one hand, right? It might be stifling because once again, somebody else's star is kind of overshadowing hers. And that's the role of Glinda in Wicked, is that Elphaba is supposed to take up the stage. That's Elphaba's story. That's not Glinda's story at all. Or it is. But Glinda is the side character, respectfully to both Arianna and to Glinda's character, okay? So Arianna might be getting this feeling of this is it when it comes to her true node and Sagittarius in her 11th house. there's something about her deeply expanding, right? And just like feeling like this is it. That's a very fiery energy. That's a humanitarian energy, ideally. But it's also associated with Jupiter, and how sometimes that's also a boundary pushing kind of sign, if you will. So she might feel like other people are expanding too much on her, and other people might feel like she's expanding too much on them. Like I've said before, this is a very intense birth chart for anyone, let alone for Arianna Grande, and it is it is intense, but there are people to make it not so intense, to make those pesky consequences go away. So that's not all that I want to cover. I want to pull both Lenormand and tarot cards on Arianna. If Spirit, we'll see what Spirit decides on what deck Spirit picks, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I have the 7th sphere Lenormand, which I'll be using for the Lenormand cards, and I have the White Numen Tarot for the other questions that I'll ask, and we'll just see which cards, which deck Spirit would like me to use first. So I've got a couple of questions. Let me pull up my sticky note. I've got a couple of questions that I want to ask the cards today. I want to ask, who is Arianna Grande really? When it's just her by herself behind closed doors, who is she? Okay. My next question is, how can she improve how she operates in romantic partnerships? My third question is, what is she on Earth to do? What is she on Earth in this lifetime to do? It's Mercury retrograde, excuse me. And last and not least, what are we meant to learn from Arianna's life? And here, let me move my microphone in so that you can hear better. It must be Mercury retrograde because I'm just all over the place, stumbling over my words, all that good stuff. So I am going to shuffle until Spirit tells me to stop, and then I'm going to do a portrait spread with my Lenormand cards on who she is really. Her central theme is house. I just asked who she is behind closed doors. That is the things that go on behind closed doors, okay? That's her central theme. I pulled from the bottom. Yeah, men. I wondered if I wasn't going to pull that. This is definitely someone who is easily influenced, I feel, by men. That might not be an accurate assessment. I should say that I'm not like, I don't listen to Arianna Grande's music, okay? I don't watch her stuff. She started acting like when I was in college, I think. I seem to remember that. I was well out of range for her stuff. But yeah, no, she and I share a Pluto and Scorpio, and she and I also share a Pluto and Scorpio, like opposing with that Venus and Taurus, which talks about having to deal with death, in a variety of circumstances, just having to deal with death from an early age. Yeah. Okay, so I've laid out my cards. Notably, she does not appear, I would expect, with like the woman card or with the anima card. 7th sphere is a little bit different. With anima, I kind of would have expected that, would have hoped to have seen her in this. I don't. I do see animus, and that was the second card that I pulled when I started laying out cards. We'll get to that. Once again, central theme is about house. That's about family, and it lands on the 5th house, more about the family tree. This is about family keeping secrets for generations, okay? There's most likely generational trauma when it comes to the people in her life, and I'm seeing influences in the future when it comes to the men in her life, the men that she meets in kind of a social context, like fans, like award ceremonies, meet and greets, with people who are introduced to her because, oh, you're wealthy, you're a VIP, come meet my other wealthy VIP kind of energy, right? There are going to continue to be things that occur behind closed doors, a very private kind of thing that we don't get to see. With that Pluto and Scorpio energy, I'm not surprised with this at all. Scorpios are already secretive people, and when the Scorpio is in its home, associated with its home planet, Pluto, well, that secrecy is doubled, okay? I'm not surprised to see that at all. But there's stuff that she will continue to keep secret from the rest of us in the future when it comes to the social interactions that she has with these particular men. Animus lands on the house of the writer, which talks to me about men coming and going. Unfortunately, this is not a stable kind of environment. This is not a stable kind of relationship. And she keeps it secret. I wonder if she isn't kind of humiliated in a way that she can't hold on to this. And again, with that Sun in Cancer, I'm not terribly surprised. Sun, like Cancers, love stability. They love home. They love living in one place for a decent amount of time. They love feeling stable and settled. With that Venus and Taurus in her fourth house, that's what she grew up with. And referring back to her birth chart, she may not understand why she gets these really powerful urges to throw everything away and start over, and then wonders why she's unhappy. Her Sun in Cancer is dying for stability, but those other really powerful forces in her tendencies don't want that. They want change, and they want it now, and that's not always something that is good for everything. Bouquet lands in the house of Bouquet, and this talks to me about really surface level interactions. And you know what? Aphrodite talked about this too. When she has sex with men, that's the best way for her to emotionally attach to people, is what he discovered, right? And I'm seeing that right now in this particular spread. Because I'm reading the diagonal pointing towards the future, the animus, the house, the bouquet, this is going to continue. And she's not going to know why men ride in and ride out of her life. They're surface level interactions. They're not meant to be there, but she holds on to them nonetheless. For whatever reason, Mac Miller's name is coming up right now. I know that people have said that they don't believe that Arianna has ever fully recovered from that, and I wonder if there isn't partly something to do with that here, okay? The top row is about what goes on consciously with Arianna when it's just her behind closed doors. She finds her connections with men to be incredibly powerful. And often this is about contracts, okay? I hope I can hold it in a way where you can see it. And they bring her money. So we're talking about those surface level interactions and her not understanding why men ride in and out of her life so quickly, so easily. Part of that has to do with her seeing them as ways to get her money, right? Contracts. Contractually obligated to earn her value in some way. People are people. They're not money, right? Remember we talked earlier about her Saturn and Pisces being in the second house. And I would absolutely associate the fish card with the second house. That's about money, the things that we are deeply value above everything else. And she values the contract. You're going to do this for me, I'm going to do this for you. A quid pro quo kind of relationship. That's what she values, because that may be all that she feels like that she can get with that Saturn and Pisces. I'm going to push this boundary over you so that I can get what I want. But there are going to be men, if they haven't already, there are going to be men who do that to her as well as a way to control her. This is a quid pro quo kind of relationship that she has with men. It's by no means a healthy one. And until she can step back Step into like a mindfulness routine for herself, like meditation, for instance, like taking a spiritual path. It doesn't have to be meditation. Once she starts focusing on her best and highest good, she's going to start to see how that old part of herself doesn't work anymore. She might discover that she doesn't mesh with men who use her for her money and then they go their way, right? And vice versa. She takes from men what she wants, and then she also moves on. She doesn't talk to people why she does this. She doesn't talk about the internal struggles that she has when it comes to romantic partnerships. And to be honest, I don't know that she thinks about it too hard herself. I think that she just does. With that Pluto and Scorpio, she can think very deeply. She can feel incredibly deeply, be a very loyal person, and also be incredibly vengeful at the same time. There is no ally like a Scorpio. You better not piss them off either, right? But she hasn't gotten to that depth because so many of her life experiences have just greased the wheels too easy and haven't ever caused her to stop and consider why she does what she does, and have never pushed her to genuinely improve. And at the end of the day, only the individual, not just Arianna, only the individual can decide, I'm going to improve independent of any of the external factors that are either encouraging me or pushing me away from choosing my best and my highest good. Hope that makes sense. That was her conscious level. She consciously uses men to get what it is that she values the most. And this is interesting. This lands on the house of the ship. A long-term journey. She's always done this to a certain degree. She may have grown up with that Venus and Taurus in the 4th house. She may have grown up with that kind of, I want love on my own terms. Venus and Taurus is going to be a very comfortable placement because that is the zodiac and the planet that work that they're the best working planets together. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Taurus is associated with Venus. I'll move on. Okay. This is something that she's accustomed to doing, and getting too emotionally close to somebody is painful for her. She doesn't want to see deeply into herself, and so she chooses not to see too deeply into other people, and it hurts her and other people in the long run. Her current reality, right here, her present reality even, is she's got the ship, the house, and the bear. This is the horizontal level. A long-term journey of hiding things and just choosing to be the one in charge. And independent of her astrological birth chart, she, like I said earlier, she's got a very intense birth chart. But this is someone who has been given pretty consistently things that have made her powerful. And by any means, this is someone who will do what she has to keep that particular power. Bear lands on the house of clouds, which is about her not seeing clearly of how incredibly dominant that she is. She knows that, but she doesn't feel it. She doesn't feel the dynamic. I don't know that this is someone, I feel like she's deadened so many of her emotions, deadened so much of that watery energy in order to push through and get what it is that she wants to achieve. That Mars in Virgo, in her 8th house, is really going to encourage that kind of behavior. She wants what she wants and when she wants it. That makes things difficult for her, and she's not going to understand why all the time. Something that she's always done, she keeps her cards close to her chest. And I would expect to see that with the Neptune and Uranus in the 12th house in Capricorn. This is someone who tends to be secretive until they erupt with whatever it is that they've got to present or do harm to the world, if that's what it takes. Do harm to others even. On her bottom row, she's got the subconscious. You've got Tower, and you've got, you've got Key. And I've just reversed my cards, dang it. Okay. So this is about being deeply isolated. And it could potentially be revolutionary, but this is someone who tends to look out on the masses from her very high tower and feel isolated. Now, the potential is that she can unlock herself from this particular tower, step down from it, and join people, join fans. And on this, for a temporary time, they would be surface level interactions. But she chooses to isolate herself from this, and as long as she does that, it's going to be a whole lot harder for her to get in touch with her deepest emotions, to get in touch with her spiritual path. Remember how in her 11th house of friendships and connections, like social stuff, is Sagittarius. She has that ability, but she shields herself from it, not just on her astrological chart. There may have been multiple times where she got burnt and said, no more, you get to be shut out. And I would understand with that Pluto and Scorpio how that would be easy to do. But she's going to find that things become better for her if she chooses to interact on a genuine level with people and choose to move past just surface level social interactions. So that is conscious, the reality of the situation. Also, that's her subconscious on bottom. We're going to do past, present, and future in the next. So in the past, I wonder if men didn't isolate her in such a way, and she got used to being isolated and being fed all this power. I'm looking back into her time on Nickelodeon shows where powerful men may have fed her this idea of, you are set apart, you're different from all these other girls, and that might have really encouraged her to be unkind, to be vengeful against people that she perceived to be encroaching on her territory, pushing over her boundaries. She might have possibly been taught to shove back by these men. They said, you're better than all the rest, right? And she believed that, and her chart would give her even more ammunition. No, I'm going to be that Virgo, in that Mars and Virgo energy. I'm going to barrel my way through stuff to get what it is that I want. So it looks like men have been extremely influential in her life, for better and for worse. And if someone can talk about a context where a man did well by her and she increased in a good way because of a man's influence, I'm interested to know, okay? So that's in her past. In her present reality, there's a contract, Wicked, which is being incredibly influential on her. And actually, this should be, there you go. That's how it should be. So behind closed doors, this particular Wicked engagement, is that a word I should say? This contract that she's currently in with when it comes to Wicked and doing all the press stuff and all that good stuff, this is fundamentally changing everything for her. And something that I note is that this lands on the house of the coffin. Things are ending for her. And they're deeply, like, she's not talking about this, but she can feel something ending. It's changing her, hopefully for the better if she chooses her best and her highest good, but she also may feel like very trapped. Like she can't do the things that she normally does. And remember that people have kind of made things easy for her when it comes to expanding. And for the first time, this is I'm getting Cynthia once again. This is a connection between her and Cynthia and between the Wicked movies, part 1 and 2. That is changing how she sees the contracts that she makes with others, especially when it comes to how it earns her whatever it is that she wants. I don't know that she thinks of money any more than numbers, right? She doesn't attach it to this buys me food, this buys me housing and clothes, right? she's well beyond that point, has been like possibly beyond that point her whole life. This is shaking. What is going on with Wicked and all the press tours and all that kind of stuff is shaking her to her core. And it's about time for something like that to happen. I note that she started doing these press tours around the time of the end of Pluto in Capricorn. So Pluto in Capricorn finally ended last on November 19th from where I am. Okay? This is the end of the old. This is the end of the old structures, the old relationships, old ways of thinking of money. This is the death of the old things that we've taken for granted. Family patterns, for instance, how we work with others, how we talk to ourselves. And it's welcoming in the new with Pluto in Aquarius. So I noticed that she started her rise towards the beginning of Pluto in Capricorn. And that now, at the end of Pluto in Capricorn, that power is definitely starting to change and possibly wane. Possibly, okay? It's definitely changing. And I don't know that she knows how to deal with it. I don't know that the people around her can smooth over the feeling within her that this, like, what's going on here is going to lead to the ends of other things. She can feel things changing. It's deeply unsettling with someone with such heavy Capricorn energy. Remember, she's got that Capricorn ascendant. This is someone who likes to be on firm ground. And especially with that sun sign in Cancer, stability is something that she deeply loves. And she can't have that really anymore. That's starting to go away, and hopefully she chooses to become a better person. Well, let's talk about who she is in the future. If she chooses to continue to proceed exactly as she's proceeded without making any changes, I wonder if she's not going to continue to hold on as tightly as possible all these social connections and continue to try to be the dominant one. Now, I don't know that people are going to allow her. Once again, that star power is quite seductive for a lot of people, but I don't know how long that's going to last. Youth isn't forever, and I feel like for a long time she's banked on her youth to get her to where she's wanted to go. And that's fading. Saturn returns are not easy ones. Even if someone has people smoothing things over for them, Saturn returns are still emotionally and mentally disruptive. They're meant to be. They're meant to ask us to grow up. And I wonder if she isn't going to cling even more tightly towards the past, because it worked in the past. Why isn't it working now? Whatever's going on with Wicked does have implications going on into the future about who she's going to become, and I see her as someone who might tend to grip even more tightly to an old reality that no longer exists. Pluto in Aquarius might be quite rough for her. I can look back at her birth chart and see what current transits are going on, how Pluto in Aquarius interacts with it. We can take a look at that a little bit later if I remember, okay? Someone who's going to cling tightly to the past, who likes to stay in their shell. We have Pluto and Scorpio energy, and then we have Sun and Cancer energy. Two creatures that have deeply, deeply armored bodies. And breaking that armor is going to feel like being torn apart. But that armor for her needs to be torn apart by no one else but her, in order to get at who she is really on the deep side and expand and improve on that individual, instead of relying on others and instead of relying on her fame, her connections, her money to get where it is that she wants and perceives that she needs to go, even actually needs to go. So no more. Okay, I'm looking. Spirit's drawing my attention to the past diagonal. That's fish, that's house, and that's tower. Okay, in the past, her money has literally isolated her. It's given her a place to shelter and stay separate from others. She doesn't need to emotionally attach, show what a human person she is, because her money, her fame has given her that detachment. But it's come at a great cost with the people that should be close to her. It's come at a tremendous cost. And for whatever reason, Eric Slater, like really pretty consistently, his face has pretty consistently come up throughout this reading. I wonder if there isn't something that she's like she doesn't want to realize, but it's also not something that she can entirely avoid when it comes to her connection with Eric Slater, right? I definitely feel like she's going to move on from him sooner rather than later, because whatever he's bringing up, whatever Wicked's bringing up for her is like so uncomfortable that she's going to try to do whatever she can to separate from it after the fact. Maybe not Wicked so much. Maybe she'll continue to be proud of this well into the future, or on a surface level, she might talk about how proud she is. But on a private level, she might be kind of like, that's where everything started to go haywire for me. And that wasn't by any mistake. That's what the universe wanted for her. So, let me ask my next question. How can she improve how she operates in romantic partnerships? I'll be right back. Okay, I have shuffled and I'm laying out a Celtic cross with the White Numen Tarot about what it is that she can do to improve how she operates inside romantic relationships. It's like there's some kind of like, with that Neptune and Uranus and Capricorn, her 12th house, and that like directly opposes her Mercury in Cancer in her 7th house. It's like she gets a kick out of disrupting things. Like it gives her a thrill. Like, I know I shouldn't do this, but I'm going to do it anyway, right? It's really destructive. And then she might be the kind of person to be like, God damn, that didn't feel as great as I thought, and then move on to the next person, right? This is someone who tries to use men to assuage her feelings, uses the new romantic partner to assuage her feelings of how she treated the previous romantic partner. So, let's talk about her central theme, which is the world and how you behave, is like literally what it's saying right now. Now, this is not a great card to have in your past. That justice, that karma, that what comes to mind right now is the Thoth adjustment card, which is the justice version of this. In the adjustment card, there is a scale that's attached to the entity's head, and whenever the entity makes the slightest movement, those scales shift around. That's the image that I'm getting. Her choices look small on the surface, but they have major implications for the people that she fucks with, right? And I mean that in like a negative way, that the lives that she messes up. When she cheats on a previous partner, she fucks them up. And they're saying right here in the past that karma's watching and recording everything that she does, listening on what she says to get out of those situations. And I come back to that Mercury in Cancer, that she knows how to manipulate verbally her way in such a way that says everything's fine, everything's stable, and then in fact, it's not. She's able to lie pretty easily, I'm getting. And they're saying, karma's a bitch. You do have a debt to pay at the end of the day. This is her challenge card. It is pointing up towards them. Yeah, pointing towards the past in this particular case. And that tells me, we've talked about revolution and radical change. She's been avoiding this for a while. This is the Tower moment. An external factor coming into play that she has no control over, and it throws her out of that isolated tower that we saw in the Lenormand spread, the tower that men have placed her in, like, you are special, you are different from any other girl, any other woman, and you need to treat yourself that way, is a lie that she's consumed now since the beginning of Pluto in Capricorn. Pluto in Aquarius says enough is enough. It's time to end the way that you operate, and it's going to be a painful, heartbreaking ending. Look at where those arrows are landing. In his heart, in his chest, and it's an utter shock for this particular individual. I don't think that Arianna expects negative consequences for her cheating and messing up other people's lives in the process of her heading on to the new person, or even messing up people's lives while she starts a new life with the new person. I'm thinking once again of Eric Slater. Karma was absolutely watching when all of that stuff went down, and there will be hell to pay going on into the future. With the tower pointing at, like, yeah, it starts out in the past, and well, this is what I'm looking at. Starts out in the past and heads on into the future. I've seen people say there's no reason for you to hold what she did in the past over her head, and the universe says we deeply disagree. The piper must be paid. People need to be healed, and the only way to do that is to bring Arianna's attention to how she operates and how much damage that is done. This is in her conscious position. This is the Knight of Pentacles, gradually working towards something of great value and being a steady worker too. I would expect that out of a Capricorn. But you've also got that deeply disruptive energy appearing in Capricorn with Uranus appearing there. And I would expect to see that right here. Suddenly things end. You can't operate that way anymore. You have to behave differently. Her Saturn return is going to demand that Saturn return in Pisces. You can't just push your boundaries wherever the hell you want to and have people love you for it at the end of the day. So right now she's just steadily doing the same thing as she's always done. No change, doesn't have to. Very stubborn energy too. And with all that earth energy in her chart, I would kind of expect to see that. That doesn't mean that she shouldn't course correct. Subconsciously, she is utterly blind to how she operates. She kind of uses her intuition a little bit to move things around. And once again, Pluto and Scorpio, sun sign in Cancer, that's going to just be an innate thing for her to do. Also, Neptune appearing in her 12th house. I would expect that. She has quite a bit of watery energy in her. She has some natural intuition within her. Her intuition is saying, that this is not cool, what's going on here. That this is going to catch up at the end of the day. She's ignoring that right now. She doesn't want to hear it. She doesn't want to see it. She's blinded to the incoming consequences right here that she's going to have to deal with into the future. This is the reputation that she's earned, that she continues to earn steadily to this day, but it has to stop. And the universe is saying, can you stop before we stop the things for you? This is a really powerful, challenging card for her. I would not fuck with this particular card. And this is rough. Watching a harvest get pulled up, the harvest of bad fruits that can't be eaten, can't be enjoyed, can't be safely consumed, or it's just about the failure of a harvest entirely. Oh, yeah, Eight of Pentacles, sorry. Still along those same lines. She's done some hard, careful work over the years, and she's going to see that all pulled up. Same thing with the Seven of Pentacles, what I originally saw, but didn't actually see. This is going to be someone who worked really, really hard to have what it is that she has in the entertainment industry, and her bad behavior is going to uproot all of that hard, careful work. It's just going to go by the wayside. There's also the risk that she could try to take shortcuts to get what it is that she wants. But in the future, that's not going to be terribly successful. I don't believe this Tower moment, I don't believe this Justice card is going to permit that. Now, this is interesting. The dissolvement of home, of what feels like home, deeply disruptive energy right here. This is the Four of Wands. This is about, this particular card shows a mother getting her daughter ready to be initiated into a sacred place. When this is in reverse, all of that energy is disrupted. This is not about coming home to a place where your ancestors have enjoyed. And remember how she had the home, the house, as her central card in the Lenormand reading. The destruction of home, something that she's built up of over greatly. Her advice card is to recognize that home is her sense of stability, home, is falling apart by her own actions. She's the one who did this. The universe is going to teach her that you can't just destroy other people's lives to make yours feel better. For money's sake, for attention's sake, to feel good about yourself. That is the way towards destruction for yourself and not just for others. Pulling up hard work, going to be watching home fall apart. And then with Four of Pentacles, I see someone who's going to have to be quite stingy with her resources, or is going to have to feel quite stingy with her resources in order to feel like everything isn't slipping away, right? So what I do is I read the advice, the outcome, and the future card together to kind of get an idea of what she should do in order to navigate the situation as best as possible. So once again, we come back to keeping cards close to her chest, but that's also about relying on herself to give her that sense of stability and not relying on others. Now this is interesting. I've got 8 and I've got 4 together. And when you subtract that, you get the Emperor. Once again, a masculine card. She is going to need to come into her own version of masculinity, her own Emperor card. I feel like whenever I think of her, I see like the Empress in reverse. She's someone who has gotten to where she is because men have paved the way for her. Other people have paved that way for her. And security, true security, is from her building her own resources, and carefully too. With that 8 of Pentacles in reverse, I feel like she's someone who feels like she can skip the normal steps that other people skip in order to build a strong, solid foundation. And other people have kind of given her permission to do so. And if a kid gets raised that way, they're in for a really rude awakening when they come to, like, say, for instance, their Saturn return. This is in her current environment right now, the Two of Wands. She got what she wanted, but at what cost? She made a choice, but I don't know that she's completely happy with the circumstances or with the results that she ended up creating. And that's the universe at work. Like, the universe is saying, we're not going to give you the pleasure that you want if you're going to just fuck up things. If you're going to go into romantic relationships and screw things up for everybody involved, including the new romantic partner and the old romantic partner, that's not going to be blessed. It's not going to feel good at the end of the day. And her hopes and her fears is the 7 of Cups, and it's in reverse. She doesn't want to see the choices that she's made. She doesn't want to see them. She's afraid of seeing them. She doesn't want to mess with this at all. That watery energy once again points back, and this is the first Cups card that I've got. She's afraid of feeling. She doesn't want to feel deeply, even though Pluto in Scorpio is screaming, and also Sun sign in Cancer, Mercury in Cancer are screaming for her to feel deeply. Saturn in Pisces is saying, you need to feel deeply. You need to feel your own self, your higher self, deeply in order for you to progress. And she's avoiding that right now. Doesn't want to see her choices for what they are. She made the wrong choice. She has consistently made the wrong choices. when it comes to romantic partnerships, and she doesn't want to see that. She's avoiding that right now. If she can stop avoiding that and face the hard truths of her own actions, she can grow, but she has to make that choice. No more from this particular spread. Let me move on to my next question. So my next question is, what is she on Earth in this lifetime to do, to accomplish? And let me just say that I hope that she does accomplish what it is that she's meant to, what she was born to do. With that true node in her 11th house in Sagittarius, she's meant to have genuine connections, genuinely beneficial connections for both her and for the other person, the other people. She's meant to have not surface level connections. That's going to be really, really difficult for such, like, with all that intense energy, she's got a lot of hard work to do when it comes to that particular transit. So let's shuffle until Spirit tells me to stop. And I'm pulling out 7 cards. What is she meant to do here in this lifetime? All right. Drama, birds, messy situations. She's meant to avoid messy situations and not create them either. I feel like this is someone who who creates disruption because there's just a deep need, again, a deep-seated need with that Uranus and Capricorn in her 12th house. There's just this really deep-seated need to disrupt, and she doesn't know entirely why either. Disrupts her own stability and then wonders why she doesn't feel comfortable in her own skin with other people. So this is someone, like, birds is all about being a social creature, but also being, like we saw, that she is a deeply isolated individual. She doesn't attach consequences to her actions yet, but that tower moment pointing towards her past tells me that she's building that. The karma that she's currently gathering in romantic relationships is building towards a wider tower moment that completely shifts, potentially, how she perceives other people, not just romantic partners. On either side of the birds, we've got, once again, letter and animus. What is she meant on this? What is she on Earth in this lifetime to do, is what I should say. She's meant to slow down the drama or eliminate the drama that she has when it comes to the contractual engagements that she has with men, and also to end that idea that the men that I'm romantic with, they have a contractual obligation to me to make me feel good, to make me feel stable. She needs to stop seeing people in such a transactional manner, because that's what creates her unrest, her messiness, her lack of stability. Birds don't stay in one place for very long. They migrate, they go up, they go down. And by the way, we've got the stork in this particular spread as well. When she can stop seeing men as a transactional, when she can stop seeing romantic relationships as a transactional thing, then she will start to see the messiness die down. Now, I've already said that there's a deep part of her that likes the disruption. She's going to need to learn how to make friends with that, how to make friends with her shadows, so to speak. This is someone who needs to do shadow work into why it feels good to be disruptive in situations that would otherwise be really stable. She's doing this to family men. Once again, Eric Slater comes to mind. This might not be the only family man that she does this to. She disrupts their lives and then moves on to the next person. And naturally, that creates a lot of unrest within her, because that intuition inside of her is so powerful that she can't turn it off, shut it off completely. The universe doesn't want her to shut it off completely either. And on either side, we're continuing to do book endings, if you will. We've got the stork and we've got the tower. This is someone who is isolated and just kind of does the same thing over and over again, but things change gradually. Each time that she continues to isolate her further, each time that she goes to a place where she can hide and look down on all the people, so to speak, and see how the little people function, there are gradual small changes in all of that. Now, she does have the tower moment coming. It's gradual small changes that are meant to encourage her to get uncomfortable. If she can, I don't know that she can avoid this tower moment that she has coming up, whatever that may be. Justice, karma, is saying this will stop. This will stop. We will force it to stop. Karma is watching. Justice is watching. And eventually, it's not going to work anymore, doing the same thing over and over again. Eventually, the isolation will have to stop. And in fact, this is encouraging her to stop the isolation, that it's not serving her anymore. She's going to have to see how fame has gotten her some nice things, but at the same time, it's put her on a really difficult journey when it comes to the lies that she has consumed about who she is. People have gassed her up, have blown smoke up her ass when it comes to how influential, how talented, how important she is. And she's allowed it to inflate her ego to such a point that it's deeply destructive to her and blocks any personal development that she might have otherwise. The bear in my particular spread lands on the house of the snake, which is about deception, that she is deceived about how powerful she is, that the universe is about to show her how deeply powerful it is and how she can't do anything. Her money can't save her. People, her PR team, can't diffuse a situation once the universe says, enough is enough. End this, or we will. Okay? Passing through, coming and going, this is something that she's always done. And she needs to learn to quit. She needs to learn to stay put, to not move, to not disrupt all the time. There is a time and a place to move and to disrupt, but she also needs to lean into that energy of Capricorn, of Saturn, of Mars and Virgo, of yes, let's make progress, but let's make deliberate, thoughtful progress. She's not there yet. She's starting to get there. Saturn and Pisces, I kind of observe with Wicked that she is starting to anchor herself, because this is something that she's really, 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 really wanted. So she's not going to tend to want to fuck things up, and yet there's that tendency to just throw everything out the window, and she doesn't quite have I don't feel like she has a finger specifically, can't put her finger on why she wants to disrupt stuff so bad. Okay? What is she on Earth in this lifetime to do? Cut the drama. She is the source of the drama. And to stop seeing other people, men especially, as someone here to give her what it is that she wants and then she can discard them. That's not what this is about. It's going to have to stop. She is the dominant person. I can see in these romantic partnerships, she has consistently been the dominant partner in these romantic relationships. And that's not necessarily a bad thing at all if she's in her best and her highest self. She isn't. She's doing damage. And this is about her being forced to realize that she has done damage, that she's going to have to see those results, those karmic results, tumbling into her life, no matter what it is that she or her PR team try to do. No more from this one. Let's move on to my last question. I'm going to use the White Numen Tarot to answer this last question. What are we meant to learn from Arianna's life? Us, the little people, right? So once again, I will shuffle until Spirit tells me to stop. What are we meant to learn from Arianna? I'm getting from Spirit, don't be like her. Don't thoughtlessly move from life event to life event, allowing other people to grease the wheels. It's not always a good place to grow fame, right? Fame is not necessarily a good place for somebody to grow. It can be, but it also attracts a lot of sycophants, a lot of yes people. Learn to work with others. And, with this kind of imagery, I kind of get like a church, like a religious type setting with that arched window up above the entity. And look at how her hands are crossed. This is definitely tapping in with not just spirit, but with other people too, and with self. And she needs to learn, and we need to learn to work with other people. Don't be like her and disrupt stuff just for the hell of it, just also because it would get her something or get us something. Spiritual mindset is key. Working with others and sensing what others want is also key. Don't take from others what is not yours to take. And also, be careful about taking with no intention of giving back, is what else we're meant to learn. Work with others. Give back. If people have been generous with you, you need to learn to give back honestly, from the heart, not just quid pro quo, because we've talked about those transactional, those contractual kinds of feelings that she has towards people that she should feel romantic towards. They're saying, don't do that. Give back freely, and even with no expectation of anyone giving anything back in return. This is not something that she's learned yet, but that we are being encouraged to do. And also tap into that deeply primitive, intuitive part of ourselves. Learn to make friends with our shadows. Do the shadow work that is necessary for us to grow into our best and our highest selves. Excuse me. In the original Rider-Waite-Smith version of the card, that is a full moon, a brightly lit, even super moon, if you will. That is not a new moon. When we walk around in a full moon, even a super moon, the world around us is decently bright. We might need a flashlight to illuminate some of the shadows, but for the most part, the moon is bright enough for us to see decently clearly. That's the idea that the universe has not abandoned us, even when we're going through some really difficult times. And we're being reminded of that we're also being reminded of this, that when we choose to do our shadow work, the universe blesses that and lights our way and makes sure that even though this is a difficult time, that it is supporting us, supporting our choices towards reaching our best and our highest goods. That's not highest good, is what I should say. That's not something that she's learned yet. And that's something that we can learn from her. Do the shadow work. It is absolutely necessary. Spiritual path for someone like Arianna is going to be super important with all those watery placements in her chart, especially with Pluto and Scorpio. Spirituality is where she's going to feel at home if she chooses to tap into that. I don't know that she will. Potentially, I feel like when she looks at spiritual stuff, she says, I don't want to mess with, she says to herself, I don't want to mess with that because it's going to show me stuff that I don't want to see. She knows what she's doing is fucked up. She knows that. And she's avoiding the shadow work. So, with that, I'm going to close out this reading while wishing Arianna Grande the very best that she needs in her life when it comes to spiritual, emotional, mental maturity. When the tower falls and she can't look at things the same way anymore, when she can't separate fiction from reality anymore, I hope that she doesn't tend towards destruction, because when I look at her right now and like these wicked press tours, she doesn't look healthy. And that is something that concerns me. I'm hoping that she deals with these tower moments in a healthy manner. I'm hoping that there's someone out there, or in her friend group, in her family, in her romantic partners even, who can say it doesn't have to be like this. You don't have to struggle alone. But at the same time, I feel like she's someone who's going to tend to shut people out. We come back to that crab-like, that scorpion-like energy with that armor covering the body. She feels incredibly vulnerable when she doesn't have armor protecting her. Those tower moments are going to destroy a lot of that armor, if not all of it. It's going to be exposing, and I'm concerned with how she responds to that. With that in mind, I hope that she deals with these tower moments with support, with people who genuinely love her. For her, not for what they feel like she can bring to them. And that's all from me. Thank you for watching. If you got to this point, have a great day.